The metal doors of the cargo bay slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Taemin stood at the entrance, his tall frame casting a shadow across the polished floor. Behind him, 3 of his best soldiers waited to meet their newest team member, the first human to ever join their elite mercenary unit. Taemin had heard stories about humans. Most of them were not good stories. The galaxy knew humans as a young species that had barely left their home planet. They used old weapons and fought with primitive tactics. Many alien commanders refused to work with them at all, but Taemin was different. He believed in giving everyone a chance to prove themselves. His crew was already mixed with different alien species. What was one more? The footsteps echoed through the bay as someone approached. Then Lee Hyun-woo stepped into view. He was shorter than most of the crew members with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore simple military clothing that looked plain compared to the advanced gear the others had. What caught everyone's attention was the metal case he carried. It was old and scratched, with dents along the edges. The case looked like it had seen many battles. Dae-ho, the 4-armed Valkyrian warrior, let out a low chuckle. His massive frame towered over the human. Each of his 4 arms was thicker than Hyun-woo's entire body. "Is that your weapon case, human? It looks like something from a museum." Jin-ae, the crystalline sniper, tilted her head. Her body was made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful patterns. "I have heard humans still use metal projectile weapons. Is this true?" So Young, the insectoid heavy weapons specialist, clicked her mandibles together. This was how her species laughed. "Surely not. No one has used kinetic weapons for centuries. Energy weapons are far superior." Hyun-woo said nothing. He simply nodded to each of them in greeting, then followed Taemin through the ship's corridors. The walls were lined with advanced technology that hummed with power. Holographic displays showed tactical information and star charts. Everything looked centuries ahead of human technology. They reached the weapons locker, where the crew stored their personal gear. Taemin gestured to an empty section. "This is your space. Feel free to store your equipment here." Hyun-woo set down his case and opened it. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a rifle. But it was unlike anything the aliens had seen in their modern military service. The weapon was made of metal and polymer, with mechanical parts visible through the action. It had a wooden stock that showed signs of use and care. The other crew members had gathered around to watch. When they saw the rifle, the laughter started again. "By the void," Dae-ho said. "It really is a primitive slug thrower. How does it even work without a power source?" Kyung-soo, the weapons specialist, stepped forward. He was a reptilian species with scales that changed color based on his mood. Right now, they showed amusement. "May I examine this artifact, human?" Hyun-woo handed over the rifle without hesitation. Kyung-soo turned it over in his clawed hands, studying every detail. "Fascinating. It uses chemical propellant to launch small metal projectiles. The rate of fire must be terrible. One shot, then a delay to reload manually." "How much damage could such a small projectile do?" Jin-ae asked. "My plasma rifle can melt through 10 inches of armor plating. The computer core in my weapon can calculate wind speed, target movement, and optimal firing solutions," So Young added. "What guidance system does this use?" Hyun-woo finally spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. "Iron sights and practice." This brought another round of laughter from the crew. Even Hai-won, who usually stayed professional, smiled. She was the ship's communication officer and often acted as the voice of their AI systems. "The ship's computer has analyzed your weapon," Hai-won said. "Its effectiveness rating against modern armor is almost 0. The projectiles would bounce off current defensive systems." Taemin studied the human's face during all of this. Hyun-woo showed no anger or embarrassment. He simply listened and watched. There was something in his eyes that reminded Taemin of experienced soldiers, a calmness that came from seeing real combat. "Tell me about your military experience," Taemin said. 15 years active service," Hyun-woo replied. "Infantry specialist. 3 tours in hostile territory. 47 confirmed engagements." The laughter died down a little. Even with primitive weapons, those were respectable numbers. What kind of enemies did you fight? Daeho asked, his voice more serious now. Other humans mostly. Some trained by off-world advisors using galactic weapons and tactics. And you won these engagements with that? Kyung-soo held up the rifle. This and others like it. So-young clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps human enemies were not well equipped. When you face energy shields and quantum armor, your projectile weapons will be useless. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. Maybe. We will see. Taemin called for the mission briefing to begin. The crew gathered in the central planning room, where holographic displays showed their target. It was a rebel base on the mining planet Keth-7. The base was heavily fortified and defended by soldiers using stolen galactic military equipment. The enemy has energy-absorbing defensive fields, Taemin explained. They learned this tactic from studying our previous raids. Standard plasma weapons will lose effectiveness within the field. No problem, Daeho said, flexing his forearms. I carry backup fusion charges. Even absorbed energy has limits. My rifle has variable frequency settings, Jinhei added. I can adjust the plasma wavelength to penetrate their absorption matrix. So-young nodded agreement. Quantum explosive rounds will maintain full power regardless of energy dampening. All eyes turned to Hyunwoo. He sat quietly, cleaning his rifle with a small cloth. The metal gleamed under the ship's lights. What about you? Kyung-soo asked. How will your primitive weapon handle advanced defenses? Hyunwoo looked up from his cleaning. Same way it handles everything else. One shot at a time. The crew exchanged glances. Some shook their heads in pity. Others seemed concerned that their newest member was not taking the threat seriously. Taemin studied the tactical display. The rebel base had multiple layers of defense, automated weapon systems, and nearly 200 enemy soldiers. It would be their most difficult mission yet. We drop in 6 hours, he announced. Check your gear and prepare for combat. As the crew dispersed, Hyunwoo remained behind. He continued cleaning his rifle, working the action smoothly. Each mechanical part moved with precision. The weapon might be old, but it was clearly well maintained. Taemin approached him. Are you certain about this? We could requisition you a proper energy weapon, something with actual stopping power. Hyunwoo looked up and smiled for the first time since boarding the ship. Captain, I appreciate the offer. But I have used this rifle for 15 years. It has never let me down. Energy shields will stop your bullets. We will see. Taemin studied the human's face again. There was no doubt there, no fear. Just the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death many times and survived. Very well. But stay close to the others. When your weapon fails, you will need their support. Hyunwoo nodded and returned to his cleaning. As Taemin walked away, he heard the human whisper something under his breath. Energy shields stop energy, but what stops physics? The drop pod screamed through the atmosphere of Keth-7. Inside his pod, Hyunwoo felt the violent shaking as they cut through the planet's thick air. The mining world was covered in red dust and jagged rocks, perfect terrain for an ambush. Through his helmet radio, he could hear the other crew members talking. Their voices were confident and excited. This was what they lived for. High-risk missions with big payouts. Thermal scans show enemy positions, Jinhei reported. Her crystalline body could process sensor data faster than most computers. 43 hostiles in the main compound, more scattered in the outer defenses. Energy readings are massive, Kyung-soo added. They have military-grade equipment, stolen from galactic armories. Daeho laughed through the radio. Good. I was hoping for a real fight. These mining colony rebels usually fold too quickly. The pods hit the ground hard. Hyunwoo felt his teeth rattle from the impact. Around him, the other pods landed in a rough circle. They were in a rocky canyon about 2 miles from the rebel base. The plan was simple. Move fast, hit hard, rescue the hostages, and get out. Taemin was the first to emerge from his pod. His advanced armor gleamed in the red sunlight. Form up, standard assault formation. Jinhei takes high ground for overwatch. So-young and Daeho provide heavy support. Kyung-soo handles technical systems. Hyun-woo stays in the middle where we can protect him. Hyun-woo said nothing about the protection comment. He simply checked his rifle and followed the group as they moved toward the base. The first sign of trouble came from Jin-ae. She had climbed to a high ridge overlooking their path. "Something is wrong," she said through the radio. "My targeting system is getting interference." Kyung-soo checked his weapon scanner. "Same here. Massive energy distortion coming from the base. Probably their defensive systems," So-young said. "Nothing we cannot handle." They kept moving forward. The canyon walls rose higher around them. It was perfect ambush terrain, but their sensors showed no enemy movement. Too perfect. Then the world exploded around them. Blaster fire erupted from hidden positions in the canyon walls, but these were not energy weapons. They were old-style, kinetic guns that fired metal slugs. The rebels had learned from previous Galactic raids. They knew energy weapons were standard. "Contact!" Taemin shouted. "Take cover!" The crew dove behind rocks as bullets sparked off stone around them. Daeho raised his plasma rifle and fired back. The bright energy bolt streaked toward an enemy position and then fizzled out like a dying candle. "What happened?" Daeho stared at his weapon in confusion. Jinny tried her sniper rifle. The charging sound was weak and distorted. When she pulled the trigger, only a small spark came out. "My weapon is not functioning properly." Kyung-soo was frantically checking his scanner. "Energy dampening field. Massive scale. It is draining power from all our weapons." So-young tried her heavy cannon. The weapon made sad clicking sounds but would not fire. "This is impossible. How can primitives generate a field this strong? More." Bullets whined overhead. The enemy fire was getting closer and more accurate. Without their energy weapons, the crew was trapped behind rocks with no way to fight back. "Options?" Taemin called out. "We need to get out of this canyon," Daeho said. "Find a way around the dampening field." "Negative," Jin-ae replied. "The field covers the entire area around the base. We would have to retreat miles to escape it." "Then we call for orbital support," Kyung-soo suggested. "Cannot penetrate their shields from orbit. That is why we came down here in the first place." The situation was getting worse by the minute. Enemy fire was coming from multiple directions now. The rebels had them surrounded and outgunned. Without their advanced weapons, the Galactic soldiers were helpless. Then they heard a sound that made them all turn. It was sharp and clear above the chaos of battle, the crack of Hyun-woo's rifle firing. From his position behind a large boulder, the human had spotted an enemy gunner on the canyon rim. His first shot took the rebel in the chest. The man fell backward and disappeared from view. "Impossible," So-young whispered. "His weapon should not work either." But Hyun-woo was already working the bolt action, chambering another round. He spotted a second enemy position and fired again. Another rebel went down. The crew watched in amazement as the human continued to fire. Each shot was precise and deadly. His old rifle worked perfectly while their million-credit weapons remained useless. "How?" Daeho asked. Hyun-woo glanced back at them while reloading. "Energy dampening only affects energy weapons. This uses gunpowder and physics." He fired again. A third enemy soldier fell from the canyon wall. The rebels seemed confused too. They had prepared for energy weapons and plasma fire. They had not expected old-fashioned bullets. Their armor was designed to deflect energy, not stop kinetic projectiles. Hyun-woo's shots were punching straight through their protective gear. "Cover me," Hyun-woo said. He left his protected position and moved to a better angle. From there he could see more enemy positions. The crew could only watch as their supposedly weakest member took control of the battle. His rifle cracked steadily. Each shot found its target. Enemy fire began to decrease as the rebels took casualties. "This is insane," Kyung-soo said. "One primitive weapon is outperforming our entire arsenal." Taemin studied his newest crew member with new respect. "How many rounds do you have?" "Enough," Hyun-woo replied, taking down another rebel sniper. But even as the immediate threat decreased, their situation remained desperate. The canyon was full of enemies and they were still trapped in the dampening field. Hyun-woo's rifle was effective, but he was just one man with limited ammunition. We need a new plan, Taman said. Our extraction point is compromised. The ship cannot land in this field. What about your backup equipment? Jin'e asked Hyunwoo. Do you have other weapons that might work? Hyunwoo finished reloading and considered the question. I have some things in my cargo pod, but they are back where we landed. What kind of things? So Young asked. Emergency supplies, communication gear, standard equipment. The radio crackled with static. Through the interference, they could hear enemy communications. The rebels were calling for reinforcements. Soon, this canyon would be crawling with more soldiers than one rifle could handle. We need those supplies, Taman decided. Can you reach your pod? Hyunwoo studied the terrain. The pod was 200 meters back through enemy territory. It would be a dangerous run, but not impossible. Yes, but I will need cover fire. With what? Daeho gestured at his useless plasma rifle. Our weapons are decorations now. Then create a distraction, draw their attention while I move. Kyungsoo looked doubtful. What if your supplies do not help? What if they are just radios and medical kits? Hyunwoo smiled that same quiet smile from the ship. Then we improvise. He checked his rifle one more time and prepared to make the run. The crew spread out to create as much confusion as possible without functional weapons. They would throw rocks, make noise, and hope it was enough. On my mark, Taemin said. Hyunwoo took a deep breath. In his cargo pod were indeed emergency supplies. But he had not told them everything. Earth military doctrine was simple. Always have a backup plan. And if that failed, have a bigger backup plan. Mark, Taemin called out. The crew began their distraction. Hyunwoo sprinted across the rocky ground toward his pod. Enemy fire followed him, but his path was unpredictable. He rolled behind cover, waited for a break in the shooting, then ran again. Behind him, he could hear Daeho shouting insults at the rebels in 4 different languages. Jin'e was reflecting sunlight off her crystalline body to create false targets. So Young was making threatening clicking sounds that apparently translated as very rude things in her species' language. Hyunwoo reached his pod and quickly opened the emergency compartment. Inside were the supplies he had mentioned. But at the bottom, wrapped in protective foam, was something else entirely. He activated the device and spoke into it. Park Min-ho, this is Lee Hyunwoo. I need immediate support at my location. The reply came back through heavy static. Understood. ETA 15 minutes. Hyunwoo smiled as he prepared for the return trip. The rebels had no idea what was coming. The galaxy used energy weapons and hover technology, but Earth had spent centuries perfecting a different approach to warfare. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, especially when they came with rotary wings and a very large gun. Hyunwoo made it back to the crew's position with his supplies. The alien soldiers watched him with new respect as he set up a communication device that looked nothing like their advanced equipment. It was a simple black box with an antenna that he extended by hand. What is that thing? Kyungsoo asked. The reptilian scales had shifted to curious green patterns. Emergency radio. No power source needed except this hand crank. Hyunwoo demonstrated by turning a small handle on the side. Works in any environment. So Young clicked her mandibles in amazement. Mechanical power generation. How inefficient. Why not use quantum batteries? Because quantum batteries stop working in energy-dampening fields, Hyunwoo replied simply. The truth of this hit the crew hard. All their advanced technology had one weakness. It needed power. Take away the power, and even the most expensive weapon became useless metal. Taemin studied the tactical situation while Hyunwoo worked. The rebels are moving reinforcements into position. We count at least 60 more soldiers approaching from the north. Our extraction point is compromised, Jin'e reported from her high position. Enemy anti-aircraft weapons are targeting our ship. It cannot land. Daeho flexed his 4 massive arms in frustration. So we are trapped. No weapons, no extraction, and more enemies coming. The radio in Hyunwoo's hands crackled with static. Through the interference, a voice came through speaking in what sounded like Korean. Hyunwoo responded in the same language. The conversation was brief. Your backup? Taemin asked. Yes. 15 minutes out. What kind of backup? So Young wanted to know. More soldiers with primitive weapons? Hyunwoo shook his head. Just one person, but he has better equipment than I do. Before anyone could ask what that meant, new sounds came from the canyon. Heavy mechanical noises that made the ground vibrate. The rebels were bringing in something big. Ginny's voice came over the radio with alarm. Contact. Large vehicles, approaching from 3 directions. They looked like combat walkers. Through her scope, she could see 3 massive machines moving toward their position. Each walker stood 12 feet tall on 4 mechanical legs. Heavy armor plating covered their bodies, and rotating weapon turrets were mounted on top. Energy-resistant. Armor, Kyung-soo observed through his scanner. Those machines are designed to fight against plasma weapons. Even if our guns worked, they would barely scratch that plating. The first walker appeared at the canyon entrance. Its turret swiveled toward the crew's position and fired. But instead of energy bolts, it launched explosive shells that burst against the rocks around them. The rebels had learned well. Kinetic, weapons could not be dampened. Move, Taemin ordered. We cannot fight those things from here. The crew began falling back deeper into the canyon, but there was nowhere to go. The canyon walls were too steep to climb, and the other exits were blocked by more enemy forces. Hyunwoo fired at the walker, but his rifle bullets bounced harmlessly off its armor. Even his weapon had limits against heavy military hardware. Your backup better be good, Daeho said as they took cover behind a fallen boulder, because we are about to be crushed. The second walker entered the canyon and added its firepower to the first. Explosive shells burst all around the crew's position. Rock fragments flew through the air like deadly rain. Hull-piercing rounds, Hyunwoo muttered, examining his ammunition, might penetrate the armor joints. Might is not good enough, Jin-ae called out. We need certainty. The third walker appeared, completing the trap. 3 directions of heavy fire converged on their position. The crew huddled behind increasingly inadequate cover as the bombardment intensified. Then they heard something new, a sound that none of them recognized. It started as a distant rhythmic thumping like a giant heartbeat echoing across the canyon. What is that noise? So Young asked, her insectoid hearing more sensitive than the others. The sound grew louder and more distinct. Thump, 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 thump. It was mechanical but organic at the same time. Like breathing, but made of metal and moving air. Daeho tilted his massive head, trying to identify the source. It sounds like mechanical wing beats, but that is impossible. No aircraft uses such primitive flight systems. Anti-gravity drives are silent, Kyung-soo agreed. Whatever that is, it is not using standard galactic technology. The thumping grew closer, echoing off the canyon walls. Even the enemy walkers seemed to pause their bombardment, trying to identify the new sound. Hyunwoo checked his watch and smiled. Right on time. Your backup uses mechanical flight? Taemin asked in disbelief. Helicopters are reliable. They work in any environment, any weather, any electromagnetic interference. But they are so inefficient, So Young protested. Why use rotating wings when you can manipulate gravity fields? Because gravity manipulators need complex power systems. Helicopter engines run on simple fuel. The sound was now loud enough that everyone could hear it clearly. The rhythmic chopping of rotor blades cutting through air. It was getting closer fast. Ginny spotted it first from her elevated position. Visual contact, unknown aircraft approaching, from the east. It looks like a primitive atmospheric vehicle. Through her crystalline eyes, she could see the machine clearly. It had a long body with a tail rotor and 2 main rotors spinning above it. The design looked ancient compared to sleek hover vehicles. Analysis complete, Kyung-soo reported, scanning the approaching aircraft. Mechanical flight system using rotating airfoils for lift generation. Completely inefficient compared to anti-gravity drives. But it works, Hyunwoo pointed out. The helicopter crested the canyon rim and came into full view. It was painted in military colors with no identifying markings. But what caught everyone's attention was not the aircraft itself. Mounted beneath the helicopter was something that defied their understanding of modern warfare, a massive weapon with multiple rotating barrels arranged in a circle. The barrels were already spinning, creating a low whining sound that mixed with the rotor noise. "What is that weapon?" Taemin asked, staring at the strange device. "Gatling. Gun," Hyunwoo replied. 6 rotating barrels, fires 3,000 rounds per minute. The crew fell silent as they processed this information. 3,000 rounds per minute was beyond their comprehension. Their energy weapons fired single shots with charging delays between each one. "That is impossible," Kyung-soo said. "No weapon can maintain that rate of fire. The barrel heating alone would melt the gun. Multiple barrels share the heat load. While one fires, the others cool. How much ammunition can it carry?" So Young asked. "Enough." The helicopter pilot's voice came through Hyunwoo's radio in Korean. Hyunwoo responded with target information and friendly positions. Below them, the enemy walkers had turned their attention to this new threat. Their turrets swiveled upward, tracking the aircraft. They fired explosive shells at the helicopter, but the pilot was already moving. The machine banked sharply left, then right, avoiding the incoming fire with surprising agility for such a primitive design. "Evasive maneuvers," Jin-ae observed. "The pilot has good reflexes." Park Min-ho was a test pilot before he joined the military, Hyunwoo explained. "He can fly anything with wings or rotors." The helicopter completed its evasive pattern and lined up for an attack run. The Gatling gun beneath it continued to spin, now glowing slightly from the friction of its rotating parts. "Is it going to fire?" Dae-ho asked. "Wait for it," Hyunwoo said. The aircraft dove toward the first walker. For a moment it looked like a primitive machine challenging advanced military hardware in a hopeless battle. Then the Gatling gun opened fire. The sound was unlike anything the Galactic soldiers had ever heard. Not the clean buzz of energy weapons, or the sharp crack of individual gunshots. This was a continuous roar like thunder that never stopped. A stream of projectiles poured from the spinning barrels at an impossible rate. The bullets formed an almost solid line between the helicopter and its target. Each round was small, but there were so many of them that the cumulative effect was overwhelming. The walker's armor, designed to deflect energy and resist explosive impacts, had never been tested against this kind of sustained kinetic bombardment. The first few bullets bounced off, but more kept coming. Hundreds per second, then thousands. The armor began to crack under the relentless impact. Pieces broke away, exposing the machine's internal systems. Still more bullets poured in, tearing through delicate electronics and mechanical systems. The walker staggered, its coordination systems failing. One leg locked up, then another. The turret stopped rotating as its control circuits were destroyed. Finally, the machine toppled over with a thunderous crash. The crew watched in stunned silence as the helicopter banked for another run at the second walker. "How?" was all Kyung-soo could manage to say. Hyunwoo was already moving, using the distraction to advance on enemy positions. "Sometimes you do not need to be more advanced. You just need to throw more rocks." The helicopter banked sharply to avoid incoming fire from the second walker. Inside the cockpit, Park Min-ho gripped the controls with steady hands. He had flown through worse situations than this. The enemy shells exploded around his aircraft, but he kept it moving in unpredictable patterns. Through his headset, he could hear Hyunwoo's voice giving him target information in Korean. "Second walker, northeast position. Heavy armor, active targeting systems." "Understood," Min-ho replied, bringing the helicopter around for another attack run. Beginning engagement. Below in the canyon, the alien crew watched in fascination as this primitive aircraft danced through enemy fire. Their own hover vehicles were faster and more maneuverable, but they needed complex computer systems to stay stable. This machine flew by pure mechanical control and pilot skill. "How does it maintain stability?" Jin-ae asked, tracking the helicopter's movements through her scope. "There are no anti-gravity compensators, no computer-assisted flight controls. The pilot does it all manually," Hyunwoo explained while reloading his rifle. "Every adjustment, every movement, it takes skill and practice." So-young clicked her mandibles in amazement. "That is like trying to balance on one leg while someone throws rocks at you. How can any biological being process that much information at once?" "Humans are good at multitasking under pressure," Hyunwoo said simply. The helicopter completed its turn and dove toward the second walker. The Gatling gun beneath it spun faster, its barrels now glowing with heat from the previous engagement. The whining sound it made grew higher in pitch. The walker's turret tracked the approaching aircraft and fired. Explosive shells burst in the air around the helicopter, but Minho anticipated each shot. He rolled the aircraft left, then pulled, up sharply, using the canyon walls to break the enemy's targeting solution. Impossible, Kyung-soo breathed. No pilot can react that fast to multiple targeting systems. Watch and learn, Hyun-woo said. The helicopter leveled out 50 meters above the walker and opened fire. The Gatling gun roared to life again, and the stream of bullets poured down like metal rain. The sound was even louder in the confined space of the canyon. It echoed off the walls and seemed to come from everywhere at once. This walker tried to move, but its mechanical legs were not designed for quick maneuvers. The bullets found their target before it could reach cover. They struck the armor plating with thousands of tiny impacts per minute. The crew could see sparks flying as rounds ricocheted off the hardened surface, but not all of them bounced away. Some found weak points in the armor joints. Others hit the same spot repeatedly until they punched through. The armor is failing, Taemin observed, watching through his tactical scope. But how? That plating should stop anything short of anti-tank weapons. Volume of fire, Hyun-woo explained while taking shots at rebel infantry positions. One bullet bounces off. 1,000 bullets in the same place will eventually break through. The walker's left front leg seized up as bullets found its hydraulic systems. Fluid sprayed from severed lines and the machine lurched sideways. Its turret tried to compensate, but the targeting computer could not lock onto the fast-moving helicopter. More bullets poured in, systematically destroying every system they could reach. Communication arrays shattered, sensor pods exploded, weapon feeds jammed as metal fragments clogged the loading mechanisms. The walker fired one last desperate shot before its main gun went silent. The explosive shell missed the helicopter by 50 meters. Then the machine's power systems failed, and it toppled forward like a falling tree. The crash shook the entire canyon. Dust and rock fragments rained down from the walls where the walker struck them. 2 down, Minho reported through the radio. 1 more to go, Hyun-woo replied. Southwest position, behind the large boulder formation. The third walker had learned from watching its companions die. Instead of standing in the open, it had backed into a defensive position among the rocks. Only its turret was visible above. The stone protection. Minho brought the helicopter around for another attack run, but the angle was difficult. The walker's commander had chosen his position well. Most of the machine was protected by natural cover. Problem, Minho reported. Cannot get clear shot from current position. The walker fired from its protected position. Its shells burst dangerously close to the helicopter, forcing Minho to pull back. On the ground, Taemin was thinking tactically. The walker is too well protected. Your aircraft cannot get a clear angle without exposing itself to return fire. Hyun-woo studied the tactical situation. The walker was indeed in a strong defensive position, but it had one weakness. To fire effectively, it had to expose its turret above the rocks. Minho, he called through the radio. Suppression fire on my mark. Keep the turret busy while I move. Understood. What is the plan? I am going to get closer. The alien crew stared at him in disbelief. Closer? Dae-ho asked. That machine will crush you. Only if it sees me coming. Hyun-woo checked his rifle and started moving through the rocks toward the walker's position. He used every piece of cover available, timing his movements between the machine's firing cycles. This is insane, So-young muttered. He is going to attack. A war machine with a single rifle. Watch him, Taemin said quietly. There is method to this madness. Above them, Minho began his suppression attack. The Gatling gun roared as it sent streams of bullets toward the walker's position. Most of the rounds hit the protective rocks, but enough got through to force the walker to keep its turret down. The machine's commander tried to return fire, but every time the turret rose above the rocks, more bullets forced it back down. It was like trying to fight while someone threw handfuls of gravel at your face. Hyunwoo used this distraction to work his way around to the walker's flank. The machine's armor was thickest in front, but the sides and rear had vulnerabilities. Maintenance hatches, cooling vents, and sensor arrays that could not be heavily protected. He found what he was looking for. A fuel port on the walker's left side, partially hidden by armor plating but still accessible. The rebels had refueled recently, and residue around the port showed it was still in use. Hyunwoo aimed carefully and fired. His bullet struck the fuel port dead center. The impact damaged the sealing mechanism and fuel began to leak out. One shot would not be enough. He fired again, widening the hole. Then again, creating a steady stream of fuel flowing down the walker's side. "What is he doing?" Jinhye asked, watching through her scope. "Creating an opportunity," Taemin realized. Hyunwoo switched to special ammunition. Tracer rounds that burned bright as they flew. He aimed at the fuel stream and fired. The tracer round ignited the leaking fuel instantly. Fire raced up the side of the walker and into its fuel system. Secondary explosions followed as the flames reached fuel pumps and hydraulic fluid. The walker's crew tried to shut down their systems, but it was too late. Fire spread through the machine's interior, cooking off ammunition and destroying control circuits. With a final explosion that shattered windows in the distant rebel base, the third walker died. Minho's voice came through the radio with satisfaction. "All targets eliminated. Canyon is clear." The crew emerged from cover to survey the battlefield. 3 destroyed walkers lay scattered across the canyon floor. Enemy infantry had either fled or been eliminated. The immediate threat was over. "Incredible," Kyung-soo said, examining the wreckage of the nearest walker. "Primitive kinetic weapons destroyed military-grade armor." "Not primitive," Taemin corrected, looking at Hyunwoo with new understanding. "Perfected." Daeho flexed his forearms thoughtfully. "We have been thinking about this wrong. We assumed newer technology was always better technology." "Sometimes the old ways work best," Hyunwoo said, checking his rifle for damage. "We just had to remember how to use them properly." Above them, the helicopter circled the canyon one more time before Minho's voice came through the radio. "Hyunwoo, we have a problem. Long-range sensors show massive enemy reinforcements approaching. At least 200 soldiers with heavy equipment. ETA 30 minutes. The crew looked at each other with concern. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. "Can your ship reach us now?" Taemin asked. "Negative. The energy dampening. Field is still active. No way to extract by conventional means." Hyunwoo smiled that same quiet smile that was becoming familiar to the crew. "Then we do this the unconventional way." "What do you mean?" So Young asked. "Minho, how much ammunition do you have left?" "Plenty. And I brought some friends." In the distance, they could hear more helicopters approaching. The sound of rotating wings was growing stronger. "How many friends?" Taemin asked. Hyunwoo looked up at the sky where more aircraft were becoming visible. "Enough." 3 more helicopters appeared over the canyon rim. Each one carried the same type of Gatling gun that had destroyed the enemy walkers. The sound of their rotors filled the air like mechanical thunder. The alien crew watched in amazement as the aircraft took positions around the battlefield. They moved with precision that spoke of long training and experience working together. "How many humans are there?" So Young asked, her compound eyes tracking the new arrivals. "Enough to finish this job," Hyunwoo replied, speaking into his radio, in Korean. The conversation was brief but intense. Minho's voice came through the communication device. "Enemy reinforcements are 2 miles out and closing fast. We have 20 minutes before they reach the canyon." Taemin studied the tactical situation. Even with 4 helicopters, they were still outnumbered by incoming enemy forces. 200 soldiers with heavy equipment against 4 aircraft. The odds are not good. "You are thinking like a galactic commander," Hyunwoo said. "You want to fight fair and use proper tactics." "What other way is there?" Daeho asked. "The human way. We do not fight fair, we fight to win." The helicopters spread out across the canyon, taking positions that gave them overlapping fields of fire. But instead of waiting for the enemy to arrive, they began moving toward the rebel base itself. They are advancing? Jin-A observed through her scope. Should they not establish defensive positions? Defense is for when you want to survive, Hyun-Woo explained. We want to end this. The lead helicopter reached the rebel base first. The complex was built into a natural cave system with multiple levels carved into the rock face. Energy shields protected the main entrances, but those shields were designed to stop plasma weapons and explosives. The Gatling gun opened fire on the shield generator. Thousands of bullets struck the energy barrier, which flickered and sparked under the sustained impact. Energy shields could absorb laser blasts and deflect particle beams, but they had never been tested against this volume of kinetic projectiles. The shield failed within seconds. The generator overloaded and exploded, taking out half the base's power grid. Emergency lighting came on, casting the complex in red warning light. Impossible, Kyung-Soo whispered. Those shields cost more than most starships. Cost does not matter if the design is wrong, Hyun-Woo said. The other helicopters joined the attack. Their Gatling guns tore through the base's defenses like they were made of paper. Weapon emplacements that had taken months to install were destroyed in seconds. Communication towers collapsed under the bullet storms. Inside the base, rebel soldiers tried to return fire with their stolen Galactic weapons, but their energy rifles were useless against fast-moving aircraft, and their heavy weapons could not track targets that changed direction constantly. The helicopters worked as a coordinated team. When one aircraft made an attack run, the others provided covering fire. When enemy forces concentrated on one helicopter, it would break off while another continued the assault. Beautiful, Taemin said, watching the attack through his scope. They fight like a pack of hunters. We learned. From wolves, Hyun-Woo said. Attack together, support each other, never give the prey time to recover. The rebel base's main defense tower collapsed in a shower of sparks and debris. Secondary explosions followed as ammunition stores caught fire. Within minutes, the supposedly impregnable fortress was burning ruins. Hostages, Jin-A reminded them. We need to rescue the civilians before the base is completely destroyed. Hyun-Woo spoke into his radio. The helicopters immediately changed their attack pattern, focusing on military targets while avoiding the sections where prisoners were held. One helicopter landed in the base's main courtyard. The pilot kept the rotors spinning while a team of human soldiers jumped out. They moved quickly through the burning complex, following intelligence that Hyun-Woo had gathered during his reconnaissance. How do they know where to go? So-young asked. Preparation, Hyun-Woo said. We studied the base layout before the mission. We know where everything is. The rescue team emerged from the complex with 12 civilian hostages, men, women, and children from the mining colony who had been captured during the rebel takeover. They looked scared but unharmed. The helicopter lifted off with the rescued civilians and headed for the extraction point. The other aircraft continued their systematic destruction of the rebel base. By the time enemy reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left to reinforce. The base was a smoking crater in the mountainside. The rebel army found themselves with no command structure, no supplies, and no reason to keep fighting. Most of them surrendered immediately. The rest scattered into the wilderness, no longer a threat to anyone. The helicopters regrouped in the canyon where the alien crew waited. Minho landed his aircraft near the group and shut down the engines. The sudden silence felt strange after hours of rotor noise and gunfire. He climbed out of the cockpit and walked over to join the conversation. He was shorter than Hyun-Woo, with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. Mission complete, he reported in accented Galactic standard. All hostages recovered, enemy forces neutralized. Taemin stared at the two humans with a mixture of respect and confusion. How? Your weapons are centuries behind Galactic technology. Your aircraft use primitive flight systems. Yet you accomplished in 1 hour what would have taken our forces days of fighting. Minho looked at Hyun-Woo, who nodded for him to answer. We do not try to be more advanced, Minho said. We try to be more effective. What is the difference? Taeho asked. Advanced technology tries to do everything perfectly, Hyun-Woo explained. Effective technology does one job very well. Kyung-Soo examined the Gatling gun mounted under Minho's helicopter. This weapon has only one function. It fires projectiles, but it does that function better than anything else in the galaxy. Exactly, Minho said. We spent centuries perfecting the art of throwing rocks very fast and very accurately. While you developed energy weapons, we made kinetic weapons that could defeat any defense. So Young clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. We assumed that newer meant better. We forgot that older might mean perfected. The alien crew helped load their disabled equipment into the helicopters for extraction. Their expensive energy weapons were useless until they could get out of the dampening field, but the humans' mechanical systems worked perfectly. As they prepared to leave, Taemin approached Hyunwoo with an offer. I want both of you to join my crew permanently. We need your kind of thinking. What kind is that? Hyunwoo asked. Practical thinking. Problem-solving thinking. Human thinking. Minho and Hyunwoo exchanged glances. They had discussed this possibility during the flight to Keth 7. We accept, Hyunwoo said, but we want to bring more humans into galactic military service. Earth has many soldiers who could help. How many? Taemin asked. Millions. And we have weapons you have never seen. Tanks that cannot be stopped by energy shields. Artillery that can level mountains. Ships that can fight in any environment. Jin'e's crystalline body reflected her excitement. What else can human weapons do? Hyunwoo smiled that quiet smile. We have barely started showing you. Wait until you see what happens when we bring our big guns. The helicopters lifted off from the canyon, carrying the crew toward their extraction point. As they flew over the destroyed rebel base, the alien soldiers looked down at the devastation caused by 4 primitive aircraft and a few determined humans. I have a question, Daeho said over the intercom. If human weapons are this effective, why did it take so long for your species to join galactic civilization? Hyunwoo looked out the window at the landscape passing below. We were busy perfecting our craft. When you have spent 10,000 years learning how to fight, you want to get it right. And now? Taemin asked. Now we are ready to teach. The helicopter banked toward the stars, carrying its mixed crew of humans and aliens back to their ship. Behind them, the planet Keth 7 was peaceful again. But across the galaxy, military commanders would soon learn a new truth. Human weapons did not need to be the most advanced. They just needed to work when everything else failed. And they always worked. The age of human warfare had begun. As the aircraft disappeared into the distance, the only sound left in the canyon was the wind blowing through the wreckage of machines that had learned too late about the effectiveness of throwing rocks very, very fast.